Lightning Returns can be summed up in one word, and that one word is messy. From the graphics to the gameplay to the mechanical design, every aspect of this game feels like a jumbled up mess. It's as if the developers just took whatever ideas they came up with, decided to mix them all together, along with the assets from Final Fantasy XIII, and call it a day. The game has interesting concepts, but then the execution is just overall a little too messy. This is Decade Arcade, where we go over games as they reach their 10-year-old mark, and we tell you if maybe you should consider playing them in the current day and age. The narrative of Lightning Returns is very interesting. It has a good concept. Lightning awakens 500 years in the future. She only has 13 days to try and save the world, basically. Although she's not saving the world, she's trying to save souls to migrate to a new world, because the world only has 13 days left before it ends. It starts out very intriguing. The opening cinematic is Lightning kind of going after an old comrade of hers, Snow, and you're like, what is going on here? And then eventually they kind of divulge like she needs to save the souls of a lot of people, and some souls don't want to be saved as easily as you would think, which Snow is kind of up that alley. And so there's a lot in the story that kind of captivates your attention pretty early on. However, despite any initial intrigues, I feel like the writing and the voice acting and the overall execution on the narrative leaves a lot to be desired. The dialogue not only suffers from poor writing, but also poor voice acting. The voice acting at times can be okay, but then there's other times where you're just like, this is not working very well for it. And part of where the dialogue kind of falls short is it's very heavy-handed in the way that its conversations play out. So as an example, not an actual story event that happens in the game, but so someone will be like, oh look, that thing is sucking her soul out. And then the next person will be like, so we need to fight that thing because it's sucking her soul out. It's sucking her soul out, so we must do something about it. Like, the dialogue and the way the story plays feels very like both the characters are like at conflict with each other to be the last one that said something. And so it feels repetitious. It almost feels like they're devaluing the player's time, because it leads to a lot of a time padding feel in the way that the dialogue is taking place. This issue of overhanded, like, we're going to keep repeating things, is only further exacerbated by Hope, who acts as your navigator in this. He just talks to you incessantly. So like, you'll play out that cutscene, like the thing that I just described, sucking her soul out, and then you'll get out and it will have you walk up to the monster, and like whenever it pulls you out, Hope is in your ear. Lightning, don't forget, you gotta kill this monster because it's sucking her soul out. But be careful because this monster, blah 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 blah. And he just keeps talking. And furthermore, on how annoying he is, there's this whole concept with the time aspect, which we'll get into shortly, where you have to go back to your ship at 6 a.m. every single day. So you get the full day pretty much, and then you go back at 6 a.m. And you will hear Hope at 5 a.m. Lightning, don't forget, you only have 1 hour left. And then I swear it felt like by 5:15, which is only a few seconds later, he'll be like, Lightning, there's only 45 minutes left. And then 5:30 comes along, Lightning, you only have half an hour until you must return back to the Ark. And then 5:45 rolls around, Lightning, don't forget, there's only 15 minutes left. And the hours in this game play out very quickly compared to a normal hour. It's like probably only a few minutes for an hour to pass in this game. So you end up hearing Hope freaking bitching at you like 4 or 5 times within 1 hour. It's probably not quite that extreme. I believe it's like 5:30, 5:45, and then like maybe 5:50. He just talks too much. Too much. Every single mission you get, you'll get the mission from the person, and then it pulls out, and then it's like Lightning and Hope having a conversation, which, you know, it can make sense, but the dialogue does not feel like it is enhancing what you just heard. It feels like it's just restating it at you. It doesn't feel like whenever you see a secret agent in a directive or whatever having a conversation, how they're like actually contemplating and having a bit more of a conversation about it. Like some of them do play out like that, but a lot of them just feels like you're just rehashing stuff to rehash stuff, and it just feels weird to me. And that also plays into the writing for the side quests is just not very good. So you're getting through these not very good side quests, and then Hope is rehashing not very good stories to you in a different light, and then Lightning is trying to go along with that rehash, and it just everything feels like a jumbled up weird mess. And we'll get more into side quests here in just a moment. So now let's go ahead and touch on the time mechanic a little bit. The game gives you 13 days to try and get your mission done, and at the start it does not give you the 13 days. It gives you like 5 or 6 days. And in order to extend the clock, you need to save souls, and you need to offer them up to Yggdrasil, the life tree or whatever, and then it will manage to pull more time in for the world to live, for you to save more souls. So it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling circle thing. This seems fine and dandy at first, but then you realize that the way you save souls is actually through completing kind of meaningless feeling side quests. Most of the side quests in this game just don't feel good to go through. You will have to go talk to that random chick and hear her story about how, oh, I'm so paranoid about the clocks and I want to make sure they're all working right. And then you're like, well, just go check on the clocks. And then the girl's like, oh, well, I can't leave this spot because I want to make sure this main clock is working correctly. And then Lightning will be like, oh, yeah, you know what? I can go do it. And then so you have to spend a chunk of your day running around checking on all the clocks in town. And then the next town, you'll be like talking to someone and they're like, oh, my cats. I need my cats. And then so you spend a chunk of the day running around checking on the cats. And then you get to the next one and they're like, oh, I want a bottle of this booze. And then the person that will give you that booze to give to that character tells you, oh, actually, I only give this to the people that truly know restaurants and know taste. And so you have to run around all the restaurants and taste every single food. It's just weird. There's a lot of weird concepts. And normally in an RPG, it would be, oh, I'm just not going to bother with very many side quests. You know, people will kind of point out online what are good side quests, what are not, what gives you what. But in this game, all of the side quests give you your stats. And all of your stats that you gain from said side quests, they're kind of small-ish numbers, but in the grand scheme of things, they add up to a lot. And you do not level in this game. Your only way to advance your character, besides buying equipment, is to do side quests. And so you're having to do these side quests with these lame side stories, and then you come out of each conversation with whoever's giving you the quest, and Hope is like, oh, so you gotta find the clocks and you gotta go help her and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It just feels weird. Like, it's just weird. So in order to get to the final cutscenes and stuff, the game requires you to get like 40 side quests done, which is a lot. It's like 40 side quests on top of getting the main quest done. And the time mechanic, most of the time it doesn't feel like it matters that much. But then you get to a point, I did at least, where I was on the last day and I still had one whole main quest to get through. I went and I started the main quest and I was hoping I would be able to get through this quest. I had to plan so much of how I was going to go through this quest on like fighting these enemies to get AP, which we'll go over in a little bit, to like manage to stop time long enough for me to access this and da because this last main quest requires you to jump around to a lot of cities, which requires a lot of either EP to teleport or it requires a lot of time to ride the trains. And so I had to make a very thorough plan to get it done, and I did get it done. And getting it done, which took several tries and reloading my save to get through it, did lead to a little bit of a satisfaction feel. So I kind of get where the game's time framing was coming from. But as a whole, like most of the time, the clock doesn't matter that much. And then when it does matter, it's just annoying you. It's stuff like what I just talked about. And like oh, all of your side quests need to get turned in at night, and it's the beginning of the next day. So you're just gonna have to wait. You're just gonna have to wait a while before you can turn this in. And then there's all sorts of routes in the map and stuff that you can't access until nighttime. You're just gonna have to wait. And there was one dungeon in particular where they had doors that kept flipping based on every hour. So 1 hour it would be closed, and then the next hour it would be open. That was just super freaking annoying. It was just one of those dungeons where you're like, I don't even want to partake in what you're presenting to me because it's so annoying. So you end up just wanting to like run through everything. The combat is also pretty fun at first, and then you get to a point where you're kind of like, I'm over it. I found myself trying to come up with whatever gimmicks I could to try and beat bosses and everything. The boss difficulties can be from very easy to very hard, and there are plenty of ways to cheese certain bosses and stuff. And if you get stuck on a boss, you can't just grind levels. The only way to power up is to do the side quests. And to do the side quests, you have to spend a lot of time rescuing cats and checking on clocks and all this other random stuff that in a normal RPG, you'd probably be a little bit more inclined to skip unless you're going for the platinum trophy. The execution on how the game presents difficulty and how you're supposed to deal with that difficulty just felt very lacking. It all bleeds into each other, you know? The quests feel poorly written, but you need the quest to get the stats. So you want to focus on the main story because the side quests are so poorly focused, and then you get to a boss on the main story that you can't beat, and so now you need to go do the side quest to get the stats to be able to beat the boss. And so you have to just piece together things. And so the combat, just to elaborate on that further, you play as Lightning, you build up ATB the whole time, and then you spend the ATB. And you have 3 schematas, which are clothing sets that basically have different attacks and everything equipped on them. And they all have their own ATB gauge. If you're not using a schemata, it builds up ATB gauge faster. So what you want to do is be shuffling through these, and each one is set up on a different thing. It's reminiscent enough of Final Fantasy XIII's gameplay, but while being its own little thing. It feels very akin to like a fighting game. The vibe you get from it is similar to a fighting game. While it is just clicking random stuff and everything, it is a lot of attack, 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 guard, wait for your turn, and then go again, because that their hard fighting games are kind of turn-based. So it gave a lot of fighting game vibes, almost like maybe it should have just been a fighting game or something. So combat's very fun. It's fun to try and piece things together. But again, the mechanics of how you advance Lightning feel very off. And so it's hard to want to keep engaging because you'll get stuck on something and you're just like, I don't know what I can do besides just grind through side quests, which I don't really want to do because they're not intriguing. They're not intriguing, and they reward just little crumbs of stats. But those little crumbs of stats add up to a whole slice of bread eventually. So just very convoluted, very weird. While we're on the concept of the schematas, though, there is a lot of customization for Lightning in this game. It's cool. Like, there's so many different costumes for her, and then all of those costumes you can adjust the colors on. You can put accessories on her, and her weapon and shield changes the way she looks based on what they look like as well. So there's just like a whole bunch of customization. All of the schematas do different things for stats and everything. So while there is all this customization, there's also a part of you that's like, is there really that much customization? Because I'm going to need specific schematas to do specific things. And then also you flip through them so fast in battle because your ATB constantly feels empty that it's like, are you really going to appreciate the costume outside of whichever one you leave on in the cutscenes and everything and while you're exploring the world? It's like debatable, right? ATB just feels like it's running out too much in this game, so the battles feel annoying at times, especially late game whenever the bosses and random enemies start inflicting you with slow, so you need to make sure you have ways to cure slow. You're also very limited on how many healing items you can carry, so the game as a whole just presents itself very frustratingly in combat. There's all sorts of little things that just don't quite add up. like, and everything feels like it's at confliction with each other. One of the main ways to heal slow is to use EP to cast Asuna on yourself, which you need EP to teleport. You also need EP to use your specials, but you need EP to teleport. It's 3 EP to teleport, and by endgame I had like 8 EP, I think. And the only way to get EP is to do the battles. And the battles don't give you stats. They just give you little chunks of EP. So, like, the game is just very, very weirdly set up to, like, have all these little strings pulling you in all these different little directions, but it doesn't feel like there's a cohesion to the way it's trying to pull you along. It just feels weird. Everything feels like it's at odds with each other. By the end of the game, it felt almost pointless. I just was getting tired of it. So again, just to touch on the EP further, EP, you start with a decent chunk at the start of each day. I think you start at like 5 EP total, and then as you complete main quests, you get access to more. It costs 3 EP to teleport anywhere you want, which lets you basically ignore the train taking up chunks of time, and like you're walking taking up chunks of time and everything. And then there's also like an overclock, or not overclock, it's chronostasis, which freezes time for, it's about a minute of real life, but it leads to a fair chunk of time saved by doing that. So you want to plan around your EP, which the only way to really get EP, there occasionally you'll get like ethers, but they're very, very, very freaking rare, which can replenish your EP, but besides that, it's fighting enemies. And EP is also one of your better ways to heal if you run out of items, which you can only carry a limited amount of. So it's like, it's just everything feels weirdly conflicting with each other. As I said, the combat does feel pretty fun. It's kind of one of the game's strongest aspects for me. Gameplay-wise, however, it does start to draw thin after about the 20-hour mark. And the reason it starts to draw thin is because the ATB gauge is just constantly a little too empty. Like, you're constantly just like, please refill, please refill. So you'll have moments in the fight where you like just stand there. You're just basically standing there. And there might be other ways to like circumvent this and make it work a little bit better. But from face value, the battle system's not presenting it itself in the best way to know exactly what it is to do. It's fun, but it has some like convoluted feels to it. And so it just takes a while. Like, the game just takes some getting used to, and it's not even like a good getting used to it. It's like I'ma just grin and bear it kind of get used to it. It's fun-ish. It's so hard to say too much that's like not gonna make it sound bad. It's fine for what it is. The game's overall graphical presentation is pretty commendable, especially for the time frame that it was at. I played it on the Series X, which means it was upscaled a little bit and made 60 FPS and everything through the Xbox backwards compatibility initiative. So it benefits from a lot of that, and it feels pretty good. So despite its age, it has a visual fidelity that remains very, very crisp and very nice to look at. However, there are some things like character models look a little wonky, especially in the sausage finger thing that goes on in Final Fantasy 13. There's minor blemishes on it. For the most part, very visually intriguing. Overall, Lightning Returns kind of just falls into the category of okay at best. While I myself purchased it for $20 to do this review, it's only $20, which is pretty cool. It's reasonable given my experience. I would recommend for you or anyone who might want to try and partake in it. I don't know that you should, but if you were to want to partake in this game, wait for it to be at an even lower price point. If I got this game for like $5, I'd be like, okay, that's cool. Like, the frustrations would be less. They would still be there. I would still have the same frustrations, but you would feel them less because you spent less. So maybe you should think about spending it less for this, or just spending no time on it at all. Because I'm gonna be honest, I don't think this game is particularly needed for a gamer's diet. We'll call it a diet. What games you consume. You can get the time mechanics better in Majora's Mask. You can get the managing relationships and stuff. Well, you don't really manage relationships, right? You're just doing stupid side quests for people. But you can get like the time moving forward and you having limited time to get stuff done and like time really mattering. You can get that from Persona 3, 4, and 5, basically. It's not the same type of time management, but it's feels very reminiscent, right? You get like limited actions of what you can do each day, and there's very specific things you want to make sure you get done each day so that you're progressing your character forward. That game actually kind of showcases a little bit of like what I kind of wish this game had done, where battles mattered a little bit more for stats. Because like you level in Persona, but you can get stronger via doing outside world stuff and managing your time effectively. Little bit of that's a little bit more of what I would have liked from this game. So there's like better combat mechanics, you know, just like any of the newer Final Fantasies feel better than this. Most RPGs nowadays feel better than this. Heck, I even think I like Final Fantasy 13's base combat better than this one's combat, even though this combat is fun and intriguing. I just think I liked base 13 and even 13 too, since it's kind of just 13 redone up a little bit. I think those might be even better than this one. I feel like this game doesn't have a whole lot that is, I do this better than other things, or like I do this equal to other things. It just feels like it's lacking. But like as a whole, there's just other better games to kind of spend your time on. It only takes about 20 to 30 hours to beat this game. There's just other things that feel better than this. Yeah, so maybe just skip. But it has slight charm. It's just like, because Lightning's such a cool character, right? I freaking really like Lightning, and I really like Final Fantasy as a whole. I really like a lot of the concepts in this story. Just jumbled mess, asset flip vibe. Like, just wasn't full cohesion to make it be like, yes, this has been one of the best gaming experiences ever, or even one of the best, or one of the most mid. It's just like, it feels like it's a little lower. So probably just skip. And that concludes our review for Lightning Returns. Final note on Lightning Returns, even the title of the game is a bit of a jumbled up mess. It is Lightning Returns Final Fantasy 13 instead of being Final Fantasy 13 Lightning Returns, which means it doesn't chill with the rest of your games in your game library. It actually sits like way further down on the list because it's not called Final Fantasy. It's called Lightning Returns. Just weird. Anyway, that concludes our review for Lightning Returns. I'd love to hear what you think of the game, or what you think of anything related to the game, just anything whatsoever. Be sure to leave a comment down below. Be sure to like, and don't forget to subscribe for more retrospectives and more reviews. Thank you all for watching. I will catch you in the next one. Game on.